The great academy of the galaxy stood like a shining city. Towers of silver and glass rose high, touching the clouds. Ships from many worlds landed on the wide platforms, each carrying cadets of different alien races. The academy was the place where the strongest and brightest warriors of the galaxy came to train. Today was a special day. A new group of cadets had arrived. They came from many star systems, each one proud of their bloodline and history. Among them were tall reptilian fighters with green scales, insectoid beings with sharp claws, and armored giants from worlds of stone and fire. Each cadet walked with pride, believing their species was born to fight. And then there was one human. He was not as tall as the giants, nor as strong as the reptiles, nor as fearsome as the insect warriors. His body looked small compared to the others. He carried only a simple bag and wore the standard cadet uniform. His eyes, however, were steady. He walked with calm steps, even though he could feel the eyes of the others on him. Whispers followed him. "That is the human," one alien muttered. "They send children now?" Another laughed. "I heard humans are weak. They have no warriors, only talk." The human cadet heard the words, but he did not reply. He kept walking, his face calm, his jaw set. The cadets were led into the great hall. The ceiling stretched high above, filled with banners of all the worlds that sent warriors to the academy. At the front stood the instructor, an alien of tall and powerful build, his skin dark blue and his eyes glowing with authority. His voice filled the hall like thunder. "Cadets," he said, "you have come from across the galaxy to prove yourselves. Here you will train, here you will fight, and here you will learn who is truly strong." He walked across the stage, his sharp gaze falling on every new cadet. Then his eyes stopped on the human. A small smile appeared on his face, not of kindness but of doubt. "And here we have something strange," the instructor said, his voice carrying across the hall. "A human." The hall filled with quiet laughter. Some cadets covered their mouths to hide their smirks. Others did not bother. The instructor raised his hand. "Tell me, human, why does Earth breed no warriors?" The hall became silent. Every eye turned to the lone cadet. The question was not new. It had been asked many times across the stars. Aliens believed Earth was a weak world, filled with fragile people who survived by luck, not strength. Now the human stood in front of all of them, with the question hanging in the air like a heavy weight. The cadet slowly raised his head. His eyes met the instructor's. For a moment he said nothing. The silence grew heavier until finally he spoke. "You ask why Earth breeds no warriors," the cadet said in a clear voice. "The answer is simple. You are looking at one." The words echoed across the great hall. For a moment no one moved. Then came the sound of laughter, loud, sharp, mocking. The reptilian cadets hissed with amusement. The insectoids clattered their claws against the floor. Even the armored giants roared with deep laughter. The instructor raised his hand again, but he did not laugh. His eyes stayed on the human, studying him. "Brave words," the instructor said slowly. But words are air. Only battle shows the truth." The cadet did not look away. "Then test me," he said. The hall went quiet again. Some cadets blinked in surprise. Others leaned forward curious. No human had ever spoken so boldly here. The instructor's smile widened, though it was not warm. "Very well. You shall be tested. Let us see if your courage is more than noise." The hall's great doors opened, and the cadets were dismissed for the day. Yet the whispers did not stop. Everywhere the human walked, eyes followed him. "Foolish human. He will break at the first strike. He is no warrior." But the cadet kept walking, his back straight, his steps steady. He heard every word, but he did not let them sink into his heart. He had come to prove something, not only to the aliens, but to himself, to his world, to the history of his people. Night fell over the academy. From the windows of the dormitory, the cadets could see the endless stars above. Some rested, some trained, some prepared for the next day. The human sat quietly by his bed, his hands folded, his eyes on the stars. He remembered his home, Earth, a world with oceans and mountains, storms and deserts, endless skies and countless struggles. A world where survival was never easy, but always possible. A world where warriors were not born with claws or armor or scales. They were made. Through hardship, through pain, through struggle, the human cadet closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Tomorrow he would face the test. Tomorrow he would show them. And tomorrow the galaxy would begin to learn the truth. The next morning, the great arena of the Academy opened. It was a place of stone and steel, large enough to hold thousands of cadets. The floor was marked with circles where battles were fought. High above, lights shone down, making the air heavy with heat and expectation. All the new cadets were called to watch. They filled the seats, whispering to each other. Some laughed, some waited in silence, but all of them looked toward the center. They had heard the words of the human, and now they wanted to see him fail. The instructor stood at the center of the arena. His voice was sharp and loud. Today, one cadet will be tested. He claims Earth breeds warriors. He claims he is one. Let us see if his words are true. He turned to the side and raised his arm. Step forward, human. The human cadet walked into the arena. His boots touched the stone floor. His uniform was plain, and his body looked smaller compared to the others. But his face showed no fear. His eyes stayed forward. The instructor spoke again. You will fight one opponent. A test of skill, a test of courage. If you survive, perhaps we will believe your words. From the other side, a massive reptilian cadet entered. His skin was dark green, his arms thick with muscle, and his claws sharp as blades. He carried no weapon, for his own body was enough. He hissed loudly, showing his sharp teeth. The other cadets cheered. This is over quickly, one insectoid whispered. Human bones will break in seconds, said another. The instructor lifted his hand. Begin, the reptilian moved first. His heavy steps shook the ground. He swung his claw like a hammer, fast and deadly. The human moved aside just in time. The claw cut through the air where his head had been. The audience gasped. The human was not fast compared to the insectoids, but he was quick enough. He kept moving, dodging, staying out of reach. The reptilian growled, his anger growing. Another strike, another dodge, then another. The reptilian grew impatient. He charged forward with full force, claws aimed at the human's chest. The human rolled to the side, and the reptilian's body hit the ground hard. Dust rose. The arena shook. The human stood up quickly. His breathing was steady. His eyes studied the reptilian, not with fear, but with focus. The reptilian roared, leaping back to his feet. This time he came faster, swiping with both claws. The human raised his arms, blocking one strike, and pain shot through him. The force nearly broke his guard, but he held on. He twisted, using the reptilian's own speed against him, and drove his elbow into the alien's chest. It was not much. The reptilian hardly felt the pain, but it was enough to make him stumble. The audience went silent. The fight went on. The reptilian swung again and again, but the human did not fight with strength. He fought with patience. He used every mistake, every opening. He moved his body in ways the reptilian did not expect. At last, the human struck. He dodged under a claw, stepped inside, and drove his fist into the reptilian's throat. The alien fell back, gasping. Before he could recover, the human swept his leg, knocking the reptilian off balance. The reptilian hit the ground with a crash. The dust cleared, and the human stood above him, his fist raised. The instructor lifted his hand. Enough! The arena fell silent. The reptilian groaned on the ground, beaten not by strength, but by skill. The human stepped back, lowering his hand. His chest rose and fell with deep breaths, but he still stood tall. The instructor's eyes narrowed. Interesting. Perhaps you are more than air. Whispers spread through the crowd. He beat a reptilian with bare hands? Impossible. But the instructor was not finished. He raised his arm again. One fight is nothing. Two is more. Human, face another test. From the shadows, two insectoid cadets stepped forward. Their bodies were sharp and quick, their forearms carrying training blades. Their eyes glowed red as they clicked their jaws. The audience gasped. 2 against 1. No human could win this. The instructor's voice was clear. If Earth breeds warriors, then show us now. The human looked at his new opponents. He felt the ache in his arm from the last fight, the sting in his muscles, the sweat on his brow. But he did not step back. He lifted his fists, ready. "I will fight!" The crowd roared, half with laughter, half with excitement. The two insectoids circled him, moving like shadows. One attacked from the left, the other from the right. Their blades cut through the air. The human ducked under the first strike, spun, and blocked the second. The impact rattled his bones, but he stayed standing. He pushed forward, hitting one insectoid in the chest with his elbow. The alien hissed and stepped back, but the other was fast. A blade slashed across the human's shoulder, leaving a red mark. Pain burned through him, but he did not fall. The crowd shouted. Some cheered for the insectoids, others for the human. The human gritted his teeth. He remembered Earth. He remembered the storms, the hunger, the struggles. On Earth, survival was never easy. But survival was always possible. He moved again. He fought not with brute force, but with timing, with will, with clever strikes. He was cut, bruised, and bleeding, but he did not stop. At last he saw the opening. The two insectoids attacked at once, but he stepped aside, letting their blades clash against each other. The sound rang loud. In that moment, the human struck, driving his fist into one insectoid's jaw, then slamming his knee into the other's chest. Both fell. Dust rose again. The human stood in the center, battered but unbroken. The instructor's voice rang out. "Enough." The arena went silent. The human lowered his fists. Blood dripped from his shoulder, but his eyes were sharp. He stood, breathing hard, but not falling. The instructor looked at him for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Perhaps Earth does breed warriors, but not as we know them," the crowd whispered. Some with respect, others with fear. The human cadet had done what none thought possible, but deep inside the instructor was not satisfied. He had one more trial in mind, a test no cadet had ever passed alone, and soon the human would face it. The great arena was silent after the human cadet's second fight. Dust floated in the air, and the smell of sweat and blood was heavy. Two insectoid fighters lay on the ground, groaning in pain, while the human stood tall, his fists still raised. His uniform was torn at the shoulder, and blood ran down his arm, but his eyes were steady. The instructor studied him with sharp eyes. Around them, hundreds of alien cadets whispered to each other, "How can a human fight like that? He should have been broken already. He does not fight like us. He fights differently." The instructor raised his voice, strong and deep. "Enough. This test is over." The reptilian fighter had returned to his seat, still rubbing his throat. The insectoids crawled back, clicking their jaws in anger. The human cadet lowered his fists, but did not relax. He knew it was not finished. The instructor stepped closer. His glowing eyes met the human's tired ones. "You have fought well, human, but you are still not a warrior in my eyes. Warriors are more than courage. Warriors survive against all odds. Do you understand?" The cadet nodded once. "I understand." "Good," the instructor said. His voice dropped, cold as steel. "Because your next test will be harder." The crowd stirred. Whispers spread again. No cadet had ever been asked to fight 3 battles in one day. The instructor raised his arm, pointing at the gates at the far end of the arena. "Bring it out." The gates opened with a deep rumble. The ground shook. From the darkness, a figure emerged, a training beast bred only for combat trials. It was massive, twice the size of the reptilian cadet. Its body was covered in dark armored plates. 4 legs dug into the stone, claws sharp as blades. Its head was like a hammer, with red glowing eyes and a mouth full of jagged teeth. The creature roared, and the sound echoed through the arena like thunder. Some cadets gasped. Others cheered with excitement. "No cadet fights the beast alone." One alien shouted, "This is madness." Another hissed. "He will die," whispered a third. But the instructor's face did not change. "If Earth breeds warriors, then let the human prove it now." The cadet's heart pounded in his chest, but he stepped forward. His fists tightened, though he knew fists alone would not stop such a monster. Still, he did not back away. The beast charged. The ground shook as it thundered forward. Its claws tore the stone floor. Its roar shook the walls of the arena. The cadet rolled to the side, just as the beast's claws smashed into the ground where he had stood. Stone shattered. Dust filled the air. The cadet coughed, his lungs burning, but he kept moving. The beast turned, its eyes glowing like fire. It lunged again. This time, the cadet ran, not away but toward the side, forcing the beast to chase him in circles. The alien cadets shouted from the stands. "He runs like prey." "No, he is waiting." "Can he really win?" The cadet's mind worked fast. He knew he could not match the beast's strength. He'd had to use something else. His eyes scanned the arena. He saw the broken stones left by the beast's claws. He saw the cracks in the ground. The beast came again, swinging its claw. The cadet ducked, then grabbed a shard of stone from the floor. He held it tight in his bleeding hand. When the beast lunged again, the cadet leapt forward, rolling under its chest, and drove the sharp stone into the soft flesh between the armored plates. The beast roared in pain. Its huge body shook, throwing the cadet to the ground. He rolled hard, his shoulders screaming with pain, but he climbed to his knees. The beast turned, enraged. Blood dripped from its wound, but it was far from finished. It charged again, its mouth open wide to tear him apart. The cadet waited. His breathing slowed, his body ready. At the last second, he dove aside. The beast's head smashed into the wall of the arena, cracking the stone. Dust fell from above. The crowd shouted louder now. Some cheered for the beast. Others began to cheer for the human. "Stand, human! Stand! He's still alive! He fights like a true warrior!" The cadet staggered to his feet. His legs shook, his arms ached, but his eyes stayed locked on the beast. The instructor watched closely, his expression unreadable. The beast roared once more, fury in its glowing eyes. It charged, faster than before. The cadet ran straight toward it. At the last second, he leapt high, using the beast's lowered head as a ramp. He climbed up its back, gripping the armor plates with bloody hands. The beast bucked and twisted, but the human held on. With all his strength, the cadet drove the sharp stone into the beast's neck, again and again. The beast thrashed, roaring so loud the arena shook. Finally, its legs buckled, and with a great crash, it fell to the ground. Silence. The cadet rolled off its back, landing on the stone floor. His body shook with exhaustion, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Blood stained his uniform, dust covered his face, but he stood. He stood while the beast lay still. The arena exploded with sound. Some cadets cheered, some shouted in disbelief. Some remained silent, their eyes wide. The instructor raised his hand, and the noise fell quiet again. He looked at the human cadet, his eyes thoughtful. "You are hurt. You are small, but you did not fall." His voice echoed across the arena. "Perhaps Earth does breed warriors, though not like the rest of us." The cadet wiped the blood from his face and raised his head. His voice was hoarse but steady. "A warrior is not born, he is made. Every battle, every struggle, every pain makes him." The words carried through the arena, sinking into the hearts of every cadet present. For the first time, no one laughed. The human had won. The first victory. The great arena still echoed with the roar of voices. Some cadets shouted the human's name. Others remained in silence, shaken by what they had just seen. The beast lay motionless on the stone floor, blood pooling beneath it. And above all, the human cadet still stood, swaying on tired legs but unbroken. The instructor's voice cut through the noise. "Enough." The crowd fell silent at once. His glowing eyes moved from the fallen beast to the human. He studied him for a long time, then gave a slow nod. "You fought with courage. You fought with intelligence. You fought with a fire that should not exist in your small frame. Perhaps you are not just noise." The human did not answer. His chest rose and fell with each heavy breath. His body was sore, his shoulder bleeding, but his eyes remained clear. The instructor turned to the crowd. "You all laughed at Earth. You all said they breed no warriors. Yet here is one who has fought 3 trials in a single day and still stands." The cadets shifted uneasily. The reptilian warrior looked down ashamed. The insectoids clicked their jaws but made no sound. Even the armored giants, who never respected smaller races, now watched with something like respect. The instructor stepped forward again. His voice became sharp like a blade. But hear me, human. Courage is not enough. A warrior must understand war itself. You have strength of will, yes. But do you understand why you fight? Do you understand what makes a true warrior? The cadet straightened his back, though his body screamed in pain. He looked at the instructor, his voice steady. I understand. A true warrior is not only born for battle. A true warrior fights for something greater than himself. The hall grew still. The instructor narrowed his eyes. Explain. The cadet took a step forward. His voice carried across the arena so that every alien could hear. You think Earth has no warriors because we are not born with claws. Because we are not born with armor. Because our bodies are weak compared to yours. But you are wrong. Whispers spread among the seats. The cadet continued, louder now. On Earth, our wars were not fought by the strong alone. They were fought by farmers, by workers, by people who had nothing but their will to survive. We did not fight because we loved war. We fought because we had to. Because our families, our homes, our people depended on us. That is what makes a true warrior. Not the weapons he carries, but the heart that drives him. The instructor said nothing. His eyes stayed locked on the human cadet, watching closely. The human raised his hand, pointing to the fallen beast. That creature is stronger than me. Faster than me. Harder than me. But I beat it because I refuse to stop. On Earth, this is how we survive. We do not give up. We stand again and again and again until the enemy falls. That is the only way humans have lived for so long. The silence in the arena grew heavy. Some cadets shifted in their seats, no longer laughing. Others leaned forward, listening with new respect. Finally, the instructor spoke, his voice softer now. You speak of history, of struggle, of survival. Yet words are easy. How can we know that your people truly carry this spirit you claim? The cadet did not hesitate. He lifted his torn sleeve, showing his bleeding arm. He touched the scar left by the insectoid's blade. This is the proof. I bleed like you. I hurt like you. But I do not fall. Every scar is proof that I am still alive, still fighting. My people carry these scars in every generation. For the first time, some cadets clapped their claws or stamped their heavy feet against the ground. It was not full applause, but it was respect. The instructor raised his arm to silence them again. His expression was unreadable. You fight well. You speak well. But there is one more truth you must face. A warrior is not only tested by combat. A warrior is tested by choice, when he must decide between himself and others, between his pride and his duty. That is when we learn if he is truly worthy. The human cadet's eyes narrowed. He could feel the weight of those words. What do you mean? He asked. The instructor gave a small smile. You will see soon. The final trial is coming. It will not test your strength. It will test your heart. The words sent a chill through the crowd. Many cadets shifted uncomfortably. A test of the heart was always harder than a test of the body. The human cadet nodded slowly. Then I am ready. The instructor studied him for another long moment, then turned away. Rest, human. Your final trial will come soon. The crowd was dismissed, but the whispers did not stop. Maybe humans are not weak after all. His words, they strike deep. Could Earth truly be a world of warriors? The human walked back to his quarters, his body aching with every step. When he reached his room, he sat down by the window, looking out at the endless stars. His reflection in the glass showed a tired but determined face. He whispered softly to himself, Tomorrow, I will show them all. Tomorrow, they will know what a human really is. And beyond the academy walls, the galaxy waited, still believing humans were weak, but soon that belief would break. The human cadet woke before the call of the bells. Sleep had been light, filled with broken dreams of fire and shadow. His body ached from the wounds of the arena, but he forced himself upright. Pain was nothing new. Earth had always taught its people to rise no matter how heavy the burden. Outside his chamber, the academy was quiet. A heavy silence hung in the corridors, as though the very walls knew something was coming. The cadet stepped out, his uniform torn and patched, but his spirit sharper than ever. He made his way to the central hall where the final trial was to be announced. One by one, the alien cadets gathered. Massive reptilians, tall insectoids, armored giants, and delicate winged beings all filled the chamber. Their eyes were not mocking now. They studied the human with caution, some with curiosity, some with envy. He had become something they could not ignore. When the instructor entered, the hall froze. His presence was as heavy as iron, his steps echoing like thunder. He stood at the center, silent for a long moment. Finally, his voice rang out, deep and commanding. "The final trial is before you. It will not be like the others. Strength and speed will not guide you here. Today your spirit will be tested. Today you will learn what kind of warrior you truly are." The cadets waited, their breaths held. The instructor lifted a hand, and a great screen lit up behind him. On it appeared two images. The first showed a simulated battlefield, flames raging, soldiers calling for help. The second showed a single figure standing alone against a deadly enemy. "You will face a choice," the instructor said. "Save the many and risk losing yourself, or face the enemy alone and let the many fall. This is the heart of war. The weight of sacrifice," the cadets whispered nervously. None wanted to choose between glory and duty, between self and others. But the human cadet's gaze did not falter. He stepped forward. "I accept the trial." The instructor's eyes glowed brighter. "Then enter." The chamber walls shifted, sliding apart to reveal a dark passage. One by one, the cadets entered the simulation arena, but all eyes were on the human. He walked into the darkness, his heart steady, though he knew nothing of what waited inside. The room around him dissolved into a battlefield. Fire lit the sky. Smoke choked the air. The ground shook with the march of unseen machines. Cries for help echoed through the ruins. Somewhere ahead, a massive shadow loomed, an enemy of terrifying size and power. The voice of the instructor came, distant but clear. "You cannot save all. Choose." The cadet froze. To the left, a group of soldiers were trapped under rubble, flames closing in. Their screams tore at his heart. To the right, the giant shadow advanced, its steps crushing everything in its path. If he faced it alone, he might fall. If he ignored it, the others would surely die. He clenched his fists. This was no test of skill. It was a test of soul. For a moment, he remembered the streets of his old home on Earth. He remembered neighbors lifting rubble after bombings, strangers carrying each other to safety, children crying out for parents who never returned. Earth had always been this way, ordinary people forced to make impossible choices. And still they chose to fight for one another. His decision came like fire in his chest. He turned toward the trapped soldiers. The cadet ran through smoke and falling debris, his body screaming with pain. He pulled at the rubble with bleeding hands, lifting stone and steel with every ounce of strength. The soldiers looked up at him, their alien eyes wide with disbelief. You're helping us?" One whispered. "Stand up," the human said, gritting his teeth. "You're not dead yet." One by one he dragged them free, carrying them across his shoulders, pulling them through fire. His lungs burned, but he did not stop. He shoved them towards safety, refusing to let go until the last one stood clear. Then the ground shook. The shadow had arrived. The enemy towered above him, a monstrous machine with claws of light and armor like a mountain. Its roar split the air. The soldiers he had saved shouted warnings, but the human did not run. He turned to face the beast, his body broken, his arms trembling. But his eyes burned with the same fire that had carried him through every trial. The instructor's voice came again. "You chose the many. Now you stand alone." The human's lips curved into a small, defiant smile. "That's what being human means," the machine charged. The ground cracked beneath its weight. The cadet stood his ground, grabbing a broken weapon from the ruins. It was barely more than a shard of metal, but it was enough. When the monster struck, he rolled aside, driving the shard into its exposed joint. Sparks flew. The machine roared in pain. He was thrown back, his body slamming against the rubble. But he rose again, blood on his face, fire in his eyes. Again and again, the machine struck, and again, he stood back up. His body refused, but his spirit did not. The soldiers he had saved, watched in stunned silence as the smallest cadet in the academy fought a monster no one else dared face. Finally, with a last desperate cry, the human leapt forward, driving the shard deep into the beast's core. The machine let out a terrible scream, then collapsed in fire and smoke. The cadet fell to his knees, coughing, every bone in his body aching. The battlefield faded around him, the flames and ruins dissolving into the blank walls of the arena. The trial was over. When he opened his eyes, the instructor stood before him. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every cadet watched, waiting for the verdict. The instructor's face was unreadable. Then slowly he bowed his head. You chose others before yourself. You faced death without fear. Today, you have shown us not just strength, but heart. Perhaps Earth does breed warriors after all. The hall erupted, not with laughter this time, but with thunderous applause. The human cadet, bleeding and exhausted, only smiled faintly. He had not fought for applause. He had fought because that was what humans did. And now, the galaxy was beginning to understand. The arena's lights faded back to normal, but the echoes of the human's final strike still seemed to hang in the air. The cadets who had once mocked him stood frozen, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and respect. Even the towering giants lowered their heads slightly, as if admitting something none of them had wanted to believe. The human cadet struggled to his feet. His body swayed from exhaustion, his arms heavy, his breath ragged. Blood ran down his cheek, and his uniform was torn to shreds. Yet when he stood tall. His back straight, his eyes calm, his spirit unbroken. The instructor stepped forward. The great alien's eyes glowed with quiet fire as he looked upon the human. For a long moment there was silence, as though the whole galaxy waited on the words that would come next. Cadet of Earth, the instructor said at last, his voice deep and steady. You have done what many believed impossible. You have carried the weight of others, and you have faced death alone. Today, you have proved that warriors are not born from claws, scales, or armor. They are born from the will to stand, even when standing seems impossible. A hush fell over the hall. Then slowly the instructor lifted his arm in salute. The human blinked in surprise. No one had saluted him before. No one had treated him as an equal. But now, the greatest warrior in the academy bowed his head in respect. One by one, the other cadets followed. The reptilians pressed their claws to their chests. The insectoids lowered their sharp heads. The giants raised their massive fists to the air. Every alien, from the proudest to the smallest, gave honor to the human. For the first time, Earth's name was spoken without laughter. The soldiers he had saved during the trial stepped forward. They stood around him, their voices trembling but clear. You chose us, one said. When no one else would, you chose us. The human shook his head faintly. That's what warriors do. That night, the academy was alive with whispers. The story spread like wildfire. Across the dormitories and training fields, cadets told and retold what had happened. They spoke of the human who had stood alone against the monster, who had bled for others, who had proved that Earth was not weak. For the first time, respect outweighed doubt, but the human cadet did not celebrate. He sat quietly in his chamber, staring at the stars through the narrow window. His body ached, his wounds burned, yet his mind was sharp. He knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast. The academy was only one place among thousands. If the others still believed Earth had no warriors, then his fight was not yet finished. Days passed. The cadets returned to their training, but the human was no longer an outsider. When he sparred, opponents gave their full strength. When he walked, space was made for him, not out of fear, but out of respect. And when he spoke, others listened. Still, he remained humble. He trained harder than before, pushing his limits every day. He carried the memory of the trial, the faces of those he had saved, and the roar of the machine he had defeated. These were not trophies, but lessons. Lessons he would never forget. One evening, as the sun of the Academy's world sank low and painted the towers in gold, the instructor found him alone in the training hall. The human was practicing, his movements sharp but heavy with fatigue. "You should rest," the instructor said. The cadet straightened, sweat dripping from his brow. "Rest can wait." "Enemies won't." The instructor studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You fight not for yourself, but for something greater." "That is rare." The human tilted his head. "Isn't that what warriors are meant to do?" The instructor's deep laugh rumbled through the hall. "Perhaps it is Earth that remembers what others have forgotten." Word of the trial spread far beyond the academy. Messages traveled across the stars. In distant worlds, leaders and soldiers heard of the human cadet. Some doubted the story, calling it a myth, but others believed. And in believing, they began to see Earth differently. Soon requests came. Some worlds wanted to meet this cadet of Earth. Some wanted to challenge him. Others wanted to ally with him. For the first time in history, Earth's name carried weight in the councils of war. Yet the cadet did not think of glory. He thought only of what lay ahead. The galaxy was full of shadows, stronger enemies than the machine awaited. Wars greater than the Academy's trials burned on distant fronts. He clenched his fists, feeling the scars on his skin. He was only one human, but one was enough to light a fire. On the night before graduation, the cadets gathered beneath the banners of their worlds. Each one carried the mark of their trials. Each one was ready to step into the galaxy as warriors. The humans stood among them, no longer hidden in their shadows, but standing as their equal. When his name was called, the hall roared. The aliens shouted not in mockery but in honor. He walked forward, receiving his mark from the instructor. The great alien's hand pressed firmly against his chest. "From this day," the instructor said, "you are not only a cadet. You are a warrior of the Academy. And more than that, you are proof. Proof that warriors can rise from any world, from any people, if their heart is strong enough." The human nodded, his voice quiet but firm. "Earth will not be forgotten." And as the hall thundered with voices from 100 worlds, the stars beyond seemed to shine brighter. The galaxy would remember this day, for when they asked again why Earth breeds no warriors, the answer would always be the same. They would remember the cadet who stood alone, who saved the many, who fought the impossible, and they would know the truth. Earth does not need to breed warriors. Earth makes them.